Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our webinar today, Digital Literacy in the Age of AI. We have an awesome panel of people all here with the primary purpose of helping all of our attendees understand what does digital literacy mean, how literate do we have to be, how careful do we have to be, and how do we incorporate whatever digital literacy in the age of AI is into our workflows in a responsible and appropriate way. So with that, then I will get started. My name is Tracy McDonald, and I am the Director of Custom Training at the Learning and Development Initiative for New Jersey Innovation Institute. Our goal is to connect people to the skills that they need to grow and learn and become successful. So with that, that's who I am, and these are our panelists. So I will invite you all to just quickly introduce yourselves, tell our audience who you are, what company you work for, what you do, and we can start with Monk because you are at the top of my screen.
All right, my name is Monk Inyang. I am a founder of First Street Partnerships. We do AI training and consulting for businesses and nonprofits to help people kind of learn the way to use AI in a culturally relevant and responsible way.
Excellent, thank you. Cindy?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Cindy Gallatin. I'm Associate Vice President for Digital Learning Initiatives at the University of New Haven, where I oversee a lot of development in online and hybrid learning.
Thank you, Cindy. David?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is David Postolsky. I am an intellectual property and patent attorney at a law firm in Summit, New Jersey. My background is as a computer scientist and a chemist. And so I've been dealing with a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning issues for many years. And I'm excited to educate and empower all of you on how all this interacts with regulatory issues surrounding artificial intelligence. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. So the first question is, what is digital literacy today? How literate do we need to be? So if we were to think of what digital literacy has meant over the past, let's call it 20 years, right? It's using email, it's using programs for creating Word documents, Excel files, how to actually search the internet, how to know what to click on and what not to click on. But now that we've entered artificial intelligence and specifically generative AI really being at the forefront of everyday lives, what do you all think that digital literacy means? Cindy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Okay, thank you. So I think in today's world, it means a little more certainly than it did, let's say 10, even 5, or maybe even 3 years ago. And the way that I like to think about it is AI literacy has now become an area within digital literacy where there needs to be a basic understanding of what AI is, how it works, potential applications and implications. Now, individuals may move up AI fluency, which would go beyond AI literacy, encompassing the ability to now effectively use, apply, and interact AI tools and systems. So I think what we're looking at today for digital literacy is that there is a new baseline of AI literacy that individuals need to have. And as we progress, we become digitally or AI fluent.
All right, great. Thank you. David, in the world of legal ramifications, etc., that digital literacy, and then, embracing and using these tools? What does that look like, and what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my definition of digital literacy comes from the fact that most of the work that I do is related to inventors, creators, authors, people that are literally human beings. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that phrase shortly. A world of human beings that create things that they then want to protect through the intellectual property laws of the United States or any other country. So digital literacy, from my perspective, as it pertains to AI, is the understanding by inventors, creators, authors, artists, whoever's creating something based in science or creation or artistic or something creative, or even brands, that they understand that those people that are using AI need to understand that there is I hate to say ramifications, but I mean there are definitely legal and ethical ramifications for trying to pass something off as your own because it was created or invented by generative AI or ChatGPT or something like that. So, not against AI. I love AI. I have clients who are, computer scientists and programmers and create all sorts of programs and tools that they protect and help other people kind of build their businesses. But understanding that there are some legal limitations as to what you can claim as your own. Right? Intellectual property is all about the ownership of the things that you've created. What can you get a property right on? The things that have come out of your mind. So if it's come out of the mind of AI, then that's a little bit questionable whether you can actually get the registered forms of intellectual property on it. So from my perspective, digital literacy is understanding that there are regulatory schemes that kind of control content creation, inventions, stuff like that. There are ethical considerations as well, but from my perspective, it mostly comes down to the regulatory framework surrounding AI. That's digital literacy for me.
So, Monk, you're in the branding and marketing and building business and working with companies to help them understand how to embrace AI to be able to do some of that, right? So what does that look like relative to, I've created this interesting thing. Is it mine or does it belong to ChatGPT? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So for me, I tell people and talk to people as AI is a tool, and it is a dynamic tool that's very interesting enough. There is no end-all be-all manual for AI. There is no one book that says this is exactly how you use ChatGPT. So people are sharing prompts like recipes or different things like that. Like this worked for me, and this works for you. So when I look at the digital literacy of using AI, one of the aspects of it is that there are so many things that you wouldn't know the limitations or how well it can do unless you're actually in it and practically using it in your day-to-day life. And then people are sharing that information. So while you would be amazed at it being able to pull pieces of history and relate it to a book that you're currently reading and then relate it to this idea that you also had, and it can do that within a few seconds. If you were to ask it to just count the amount of words that it produced, it would have trouble. So those like limitations on what you may think it can easily do and what it may not be able to easily do, then affect the work that you create. So that literacy of kind of understanding what its limitations are, what it can actually do, and then changing the way that you use it as a tool, because it's more than just Google, it's more than just a calculator. It has these abilities that you can then use to brainstorm, you can use to refine your ideas. And then if you're using it properly, it's your idea. You're working with an assistant to help you polish it. But that aspect of understanding how to work with it well is where that AI literacy really becomes key. Because if not, AI hallucinates, AI is trained to kind of make you happy. And so the answers may be wrong, but look extremely right. And so until you learn how that looks, it's hard to fully just give yourself to the AI unless you know what you're doing.
So can you expand on something that you said? And it was starting at point A and then going to B and then to C and then to D to finally get to the place where you want to be. Just going to the simple term of literacy, right? So to me, that kind of reminds me of, children start recognizing letters in preschool, nursery school, right, early on, and then eventually you're putting words together and you're learning the sounds, and then you're building sentences. So is there just for people to be able to make a correlation, right? Is that part of what digital literacy is? And whether that's creating something, or let's say, Cindy, in your world of, how we work and how we teach, right? Especially on a university campus, right? Working with young adults. So are there building blocks?
Yes, definitely. So I think there needs to be some fundamental concepts that are shared, such as biases, any bias that's related to the AI agent, understanding social and economic impacts. So sort of like if you think about this as a progression, level 1 skills are those foundational pieces, and understanding the concepts of how this actually works and what it does. So understanding the basics of what AI can do, recognizing how it might be used in everyday and working life, engaging in conversations about AI and understanding the risks as well as the benefits. And so to me, these are some of the foundational pieces that are really important for people to understand for digital literacy. As you progress and go up to maybe another level and think about AI fluency, now we're looking at encompassing the ability to effectively use it, apply it, interact with AI tools. So looking at practical applications that might then allow individuals to create basic AI models or critically evaluate AI systems. So it really is a progression from going to that foundation to then moving to a higher level where you can solve specific problems, understand how AI models are developed, trained, deployed, really contributing to the creation of AI systems. So it really is thinking about that progression over time, that everyone isn't going to start out by creating new things, but I think it's really important for people to understand how to ethically and effectively use AI.
Well, Monk, did you want to say something, or?
I did. I did. I love everything that Monk and Cindy are saying. I'm a big believer in using AI. I often compare it to when you would go to a library and there were all these amazing sources that you can pull from, encyclopedias and books, and you would sit down at a desk and you would create your paper based on all of these open sources that are out there. And that is one of the fundamental things about AI that I think people often forget sometimes, is that this is what it's pulling from is already out there in the ether. It's already open sourced out there. And that's important. But everybody forgets it. Even lawyers forget it sometimes too. It's a very famous situation that just happened just about 2 years ago where a lawyer used AI to write a court brief. Mm-hmm. And, for a minute there, he just, relied on all this amazing information that was at his fingertips. And to Monk's point, he didn't then connect the dots to see, maybe I should check the accuracy of the information that it was pulling. And it turns out that some of the information that was out in the ether that he was grabbing was fake or not good law anymore, and the court found out very quickly. So you have to, like, I think to both Cindy and Monk's point, like, yes, like understanding like where this information is coming from, what what each of these AI tools grab from, that's like the first step in that literacy to understand, like, oh, I might need to fact check, or I might need to verify, or I might need to confirm. So I love that it's this like tool. I love that you said that, Monk. It's a tool. It's a tool, right? Use the tool. So like use the tool to then get to the place that you want to get to. Don't assume that tool is just gonna, do all your work for you, because that's not how it works, Yeah.
And these are all excellent points. And I think that that's part of the responsibility that we have as users, right? It's just to remember what we're dealing with here. And so speaking of adoption, right, of these tools and the fact that they are out there, they are here for us to use. And there's a bunch that we've been using for years anyway, without really necessarily even seeing them in the same light. But when it does come to responsibly using the tools, and then also really using them in order to get the most out of them, just to use a simple term, what is the language that we need to speak? What is our responsibility as humans to be able to use these tools in the most efficient way? And Monk, do you want to start with giving us your thoughts on this question?
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. I think one, in the language of AI, specificity is extremely important. So two things that I preach all the time is, one, being very specific, and then especially in the realm of creating things, being weird. Because AI is very good when you are specific and when you are weird. And so I'll explain both. So a lot of times that people will share an essay that's like, clearly ChatGPT made this essay and it looks really like no one would talk like this. And it's 9.5 times out of 10 because it was not specific. And it was because the person said, make me an essay, maybe here's 2 pieces of information, then it made it copy, paste, good to go. And that specificity comes in where AI is not going to replace you as a expert in the field that you're in. And so if you try and do that, that is where you run into trouble. That's where it becomes very generic. That's where it comes up with information that's not really helpful. You still need to be an expert in what you're doing if you want to provide or have expert level results. And so if you don't know what you don't know, which tends to be the case, you can use AI to brainstorm, right? So I had a situation where I wanted to make a mock press release, and I have an idea of what I want the press release to be, but I use AI to kind of say, what are the things that go into a good press release? What are the things I need to think about? So it'll give me questions to say, well, you need to make sure that you have this, and you need to make sure you have that, so that when I then prompt it to say, make me a press release, I'm answering those questions. Oh yeah, I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do this. So it has enough information to know what it should not be. And that helps it tell you what it will be, because AI is kind of this amalgamation of almost everything. So it's kind of shooting down the middle when you ask it to do things, until you say, actually, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I don't want it to sound like that. I want to, oh, okay. So you want this very specific thing. Then it gets very close to what you're talking about. And then on the getting weird aspect, AI is really powerful in, again, connecting ideas that you as a human being would have never thought of, or would have never really connected to those two things. So putting in prompts that are emotional, where it's like, I really need this, or I want this to feel like a rainbow afternoon, or things like that, end up coming up with results that would be surprising to you, whether you're using it in creating something really creative or just something that's a business memo. Having those aspects where you just kind of play around with it, and the way that you speak to it changes the results that you have, and it goes back to being very practical. You have to spend time kind of doing that and seeing what worked for you and what might not work, because the AI is also adapting to the prompts that you give it and all of those things. So on the outside looking in, it feels very weird. It's unlike anything we've used before. So you have to approach it differently than anything we've used before. So being weird and being specific are things that I talk about all the time when you talk about the language of speaking to AI.
I like the weird part. I like that. Cindy, David?
Sure. So I like to think of it as an assistant or a digital agent that can actually help just maybe brainstorm, kind of get some ideas, maybe create an outline. And as Monk was talking about prompt engineering, the idea of really crafting precise and detailed instructions to guide the AI agent, that is critical in order to get some good information. But I think the second part, after really focusing on, more specific prompt engineering to attain really good solutions, you then need to verify that it's the right thing, that it's correct. As folks mentioned, it hallucinates because it's not copying and pasting information, it's generating information. So as important as it is to be really detailed and utilize this as a helpful assistant, you have to then really think about verifying to make sure that what you're getting is accurate information, it's truthful information, and using multiple resources in order to verify.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, at the firm, we use AI. There's like a ChatGPT for lawyers. There's all sorts of kind of fun stuff for lawyers, but mostly we use it for marketing. We use it for we put on like a virtual series every month, and we kind of come up with like a title and learning objectives. But what we do is we ask the question, the prompt, in a few different ways, just to kind of see what the difference is. And then it's like, choose your best answer type of thing. So we kind of see what, because, and I encourage everybody to kind of do that. Ask it in different ways for sure. I think what Monk was saying, be emotional. What Cindy was saying, yes, use it as that assistant. And sometimes you have a good assistant, you have a bad assistant, you have a sassy assistant. So like, if you can use it if you can ask it in different ways, you can also begin to see, that's part of the verification process also, because you kind of get inside the brain, if you will, of that AI to kind of see how they're answering your questions.
This reminds me a little bit of the Amelia Bedelia books. Anybody remember those, right? Where the instructions that she's given is dress the chicken, and she actually dresses the chicken instead of putting stuffing inside the chicken. So it's I'm totally aging myself here. But I think that, that is a classic story about communication and how words matter, right? And this is one of those things that, even in our own organization, we deal with, with what are we calling something? Is it a class? Is it a course? Is it a workshop? Is it a webinar? What are all of these things? And at least for me, I hadn't thought much about, it's, and maybe this is where the weirdness comes in, Monk, that you mentioned. And I love that word. But it's like, we have to think like Amelia Bedelia, or not her, but the family for whom she was working, and that words really do matter, and the tone that we put out there, and then also our expectations, right? Are we expecting these tools to do something without actually really telling them what we need to do? And I think that's part of the reality, right, of the situation. So this is actually a great segue into the next question, which is, as we adopt these tools, right? So let's say we figure out what to say, how to say it, which tool to use to say what it is that we're looking to have done. What are the risks, and how do we keep in mind being responsible stewards of these tools? And David, I'm going to start with you because this to me just seems an obvious place to start for this question.
Well, I think it also relates to the previous slide when we talked about image generation, because that's a big part of, I think, the way people use AI today is create me a logo. Show me how something would look like if I took a chicken and a hammer and I added these words to it or something like that. I mean, there's some like Bing image generation. There's amazing tools out there. Where it kind of lands on my doorstep is when someone comes to us and say, okay, now we've created this image that we now want to use as the logo of our company. Can you help us trademark it? Get that federal protection for it as a trademark. And it has become part of our literacy as lawyers these days to say, okay, who created that logo for you? I mean, we would ask that question anyway, right? We'd ask it, did you have like a contractor or a graphic designer create it for you? Because we need to know these things, because you never know what influences that graphic designer or that contractor had, and maybe they created a logo that awfully looks similar to another logo that's already out there. And from a trademark perspective, if we filed for a trademark on that type of image that a contractor or a graphic designer created for you, and it turns out that the trademark office already has something similar, well, you're behind the 8 ball, because in order to get a trademark in this world, you have to prove that your mark is not confusingly similar to another trademark that's already been on file. So now wrap AI into it. If people are creating logos that are based on the AI is kind of, amalgamating it, whichever word you want to use, they're presenting something that is taken from something that already exists, that's a problem. Because then, so that's why we ask, like, so how did this image how is this image is created? If they say AI, we usually say, okay, let's do a trademark search, because, it's possible that there are elements of your AI generative content that is awfully similar to another logo out there. It's happened a lot in the last few years to us, where we have to deliver bad news to people saying, hey, we love how creative you got in your prompt to create this logo, but it kind of looks like Adidas's, or it kind of looks like Target's, or it kind of looks like something. I'm not saying, yes, we're good lawyers and we can try to prove that they're different and not confusingly similar, but you're already behind the 8 ball. But again, this is not a problem that is just AI. This is a problem when you go to a graphic designer who has, this world of images in their heads, and they're creating something that they believe is unique, but they're actually subconsciously have been influenced by all of the logos that they've created prior or know about. So it's, kind of AI doesn't really complicate it. It just kind of adds another layer of it. So yeah, I'd love to hear Monk and Cindy's thoughts on this, actually, if we could.
I agree with you on the sea of sameness, and we have to be careful that we're still creating. And I think this is the humanistic part of using AI, that we don't just turn everything over to a machine,
Right.
that we have individuals who are also working on creativity, so that we don't have that sea of sameness where every logo or every marketing campaign looks identical. And I like to say to people, as fearful as some people may be about losing their job to AI, I think those individuals that adopt AI in their day-to-day work area are going to be far more productive and are going to really create their own job security in the future. One thing that I do hear organizations doing is rolling out training of AI for their staffs, which I think is really, really important. But there are risks. And you brought up, David, the example of the attorney in Colorado who not only lost his case because of misusing AI, and it was an innocent misuse, he also lost his job. And so it's really important that, again, you validate that information in order to ensure that what you have is valid. But it's a great tool for refinement of writing, generating ideas, helping you when you get stuck, coming up with outlines. Sometimes I've used it to say, I put a paragraph in and say, make this sound a little more exciting, and I might give it a persona, and it might, just tweak something a little bit. But I do agree that, it's really important for us and for individuals to be aware that there are inherent biases in the information. There could be a lot of misinformation. So you really have to be careful. As Monk said, use it as a tool, use it as an agent, use it as an assistant in order to help you in your day-to-day work.
Yeah, I echo everything that everyone said. One of the things that I think is a big risk for everyone is, as you start to use AI and you start to see the power of AI, the biggest draw that'll happen is you turn everything over to AI, because you're like, it's doing it faster, it's doing it better than I imagined I would have done it. And so you just kind of turn it over and just say, like, do this for me, and then it knocks it out and you move on to the next thing. And so there's the aspect of, especially if you're quoting things, you're putting stats or anything that's like going into the final product, the closer you get to the final product, the more verification you need to have to make sure that if I'm going to quote this stat that 59% of people do blah, 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 let me go out and make sure that that's actually true. Or if I'm going down this path, let me make sure that that's the case. But then there's the other aspect of the gift and the curse of AI. Is the gift is that, so I'm a writer, so I'm an author, and so one of the most difficult things is the blank page, just having the icon like blinking and cursing at you and saying you have no ideas is one of the most difficult things of doing it. And the same thing happens at work. You're trying to make an email, the blank page is really difficult to get by, and it stops people. And so AI can get past that very quickly, right? Give me just a draft that I can start working with, but there is a lot to be gained from the energy you spend trying to come up with ideas on your own. So if you just completely go to, I don't do anything without AI just telling me how it should go, you have an anchor effect of kind of like whatever AI started off with, you're probably going to be very close to that in your final draft. So if you are bringing it into your workflows more and kind of bringing it into the things that you do, understanding that there still needs to be attention of you just kind of sitting and thinking about things, or asking it for information so that you can then sit with that information and think of how you would like to apply that, as opposed to, what do you think I should do? Oh, you should do X, Y, Z. What? Because AI will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what you should do. And if you just go on with that, and it may be 80%, 85% correct, and it may be right, and you may go down that path. But if we as we imagine that people will continue to use AI more and more in their day-to-day life, the shortcuts will be more and more appealing. And so if you are one of the few people using AI right now, you are much more efficient. You can get to things that you may not have gotten to on your own, and all those things, you kind of stand out, but more and more people will begin to use it. And so if you haven't continued to build that muscle of coming up with creative ideas, coming up with things that haven't been assisted by AI, the crowd will kind of catch up to you, and then you'll just sound like everybody else, because we're all using AI to come up with these ideas. And AI, again, is a group of everything that is out there. So that aspect of just kind of giving over to it is a risk that I think is a longer term risk that we have to think about.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And this is great. So we've got a question in the chat. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to use the last portion of this workshop so that our audience can ask questions and you all can answer them. And so where did it go? It went away. For tips. Okay, will there be any tips on how to actually use AI? So let's talk about, how to use it. So if we're in the world of generative AI, are there particular tools that are better for doing some things versus others? So for example, between, let's just say, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini. So if you had to super baseline, right, how to use this tool and what to use it for, do we have recommendations from our panelists for how to get started in a responsible way?
Yeah, I'll start. So ChatGPT is probably the most commonly understood and used tool for that kind of text to text or image, like DALL-E and things like that. So as you know, I think we spoke about the prompt engineering and like being very specific. It goes back to what I said, like there's no specific manual. There's no like, this is exactly how you use it. So it really is, you need to just start playing around with it and trying to do a specific thing that you're trying to do. I've noticed that Claude is better at natural voice, like sounding like an actual person, than ChatGPT is. So a lot of times I'll take things that ChatGPT has created, take it out, put it back into Claude and say, could you make that sound more natural? And it tends to be very effective at doing things like that. I've noticed that Midjourney is much more effective at making images than DALL-E is. So using Midjourney and making like realistic images has been much more effective. And the way that they do it, where Midjourney is kind of done through Discord. So there's an element of Midjourney where if you're on Discord using Midjourney, you can see all the prompts that people are using and the images that were created based on those prompts. And that alone would change the way you kind of go forward with it, because whatever amount of time that you sit there and look at it, you can see hundreds of different versions of people asking it to do specific things, and then the results that it gets, and it helps you improve the way you prompt, and then also make you realize, oh, I didn't think about that. I could make an image that does this. That would help that'd be a great background for my PowerPoint or whatever the case may be. So I think those are some specific ones.
Midjourney is amazing. Go ahead, Cindy.
I can jump in. I agree. ChatGPT is very common, and DALL-E is really great for creating different imagery that you can insert into different items. I hate to be product specific, but Beautiful AI is a great tool for creating presentation software. I've used it extensively. And you can even output it to PowerPoint. So if you're sharing it with somebody, they can actually access and edit it. Gemini is really good for spreadsheet information. So if you're looking at trying to analyze data, that's a good tool for analyzing data. Copilot, which is a Microsoft tool, works really well with Microsoft Office. So therefore you could embed it within multiple tools that you might be using from a productivity perspective. I haven't used this one, but I've heard that Jasper works well for marketing ideas and concepts. And I am on board with Monk's idea. And what I would say is test some different prompts. So start with some high-level prompts. Might be how to create, an outline for a marketing plan. But then actually go in and continue to add prompts to that, so that what you're doing is you're scaffolding, you're prompting in order to get more and more detail in order to refine your results. So ChatGPT and others allows you to, again, retain the information and continue to ask more and more questions in order to refine your information when you're utilizing these tools.
Yeah, I'll just add from an organizational perspective, at the law firm, we use Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's like the paid version of Copilot, if you will. It's actually really helpful. Most of our programs are integrated, our CRM system, our, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, our SharePoint, all our files, everything. So we use it a lot to just just create reports of give us generate a report of all clients in the computer science field or the life sciences field or something like that. It takes us, don't get me wrong, we've kind of built up to this stage where we've had to kind of enter information in a certain way so that it can pull the way that we want it as well. I don't know if that's a sort of bias, if you will, but from our perspective, it works. But yeah, I think I agree with. I love ChatGPT, but from an organizational enterprise perspective, Microsoft 365 Copilot is kind of where we are. We also, just FYI, we also use, from a kind of workflow and organizational and efficiency perspective, as patent lawyers, we also, because AI is taking over the intellectual property field from that perspective as well. We are subscribers of a service for the last 3 years that when we get some sort of action or official action from the United States Patent Office, it usually cites a bunch of references, like prior patents that are going to be cited against our clients, drawings, stuff like that. So we basically feed that into the actual AI tool that we kind of that we have a subscription to, and it makes it easier then for the lawyer, kind of like sets the stage for the lawyer to now efficient for us. So yeah, I think organizationally there's a lot of great tools for sure.
Awesome. Thank you all. And just to add to that, I would say that for anyone in the audience, it could be interesting to take the same prompt and dump it into 3 different tools and see what kind of results you get, right? Like, play with it because you can't break it. 2 other questions that have come in. So the first one is, as good stewards in our respective industries, how can we continue to promote ethical use of AI?
I think it's along the lines of what we've been saying, right? So it's dependent on what your specific industry is, and being aware of the potential downfalls or risks that you have with AI. So there is the understanding of bias, that's big. And so you being an expert in your particular industry, what does bias look like if you are talking about it in your industry? So if I'm in marketing and we're talking about bias and I'm trying to find consumer segments, or I'm trying to understand ways that I would market to different types of consumers, if I understand that there's bias, this first thing that it says when I'm asking it to market to African American consumers, I need to apply like a critical lens to that. Like, is that because there is a bias on what African American consumers are looking for? Is that so that ethical aspect of making sure that people understand the potential for those errors to happen in the AI in conjunction or in relation to your particular industry is really important. So it's hard to get specific because we don't know what your exact industry is, but that bias, that over reliance on it, or just kind of like copying paste aspect and kind of getting people out of that across the organization is something that I would start with, as far as making sure that you're using it responsibly to help source or create ideas, but not this will then just be the end all be all because this is so great and so powerful.
I'm going to give a simple tip. And this simple tip is ask the AI generator to produce a citation so you know where the information came from. That will give you the opportunity to verify whether that actually exists. So you can actually have the AI generator help you in actually determining where the information came from. And, it also helps you really cut down on time to be re-verifying all that information. So at the end of the day, we're really looking at how we can help train individuals to understand that there are biases, that there is misinformation, and that you need to really check and validate all the information that you're getting.
And just to jump off just to jump off both of you, what we were recommending is kind of taking a tip from the executive office, right? The president put out, I think it was October of last year, an executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence. So how that has trickled down to companies that we work for is creating AI policy that kind of touches on everything that Monk and Cindy just said, right? Where a person gets hired within your organization, they're going to go through an HR process, they're going to sign terms and conditions, drafting a responsible AI policy so that your organization knows what to do and how to handle and how to market and how to use is the first step, I think, in going.
Excellent. Thank you. And Cindy and I have talked about that previously, developing the AI policy and what it means. And there's a lot, right? And it is a little bit like the wild, wild west, new frontier. We have two other questions, and I'm going to answer one of them. So this one's from Angela. Do you have a list of AI tools and what they do? For this presentation, I don't have a slide coming up that has that, but we are offering workshops. There will be 9 of them. And you'll see what they are in just a little bit this fall. And in some of those workshops, there will be opportunities to learn about which tools do what, and to actually try them on an experiment with them in the workshops. So I would just kind of keep your eyes open for that. And then another question is, do you believe or feel the originality of skills will decline as a result of the use of AI? That's an interesting question.
Oh my God, I hope not. That's my answer. That would be a disastrous effect of AI for sure. I think Cindy said it best. We need humans. We need people. We need that. As a matter of fact, I'll just say one little point about, because I said I was going to get back to humans, just to let you know, as of this moment, the Supreme Court has said that if you want to get a patent on something, or you want to get a copyright on something, so a patent is something based, like some sort of invention based in science, copyright is some sort of creative or artistic work that you want to get, some sort of property or exclusive right over. As of this moment, the Supreme Court has said that a patent must be filed by a human inventor. That's it. If there's any AI involved in that patent, you're not getting it. It must be human. The Copyright Office has also said that if you want to get something protected, some sort of creative or artistic work, sculpture, music, logos, literary works, stuff like that, then those creative elements that you want protection over have to be human. So AI cannot be an inventor, and AI cannot be a creator. So to Cindy's point, yes, we still need human skills. We still need human skills. And if AI begins to take that over, well, then just watch, Terminator or, Westworld, and, get scared and know that that the way to stop this is to always have some sort of human interaction to it. Hope that's not too bleak of an answer,
I think jobs are going to change, though. I think some jobs that currently exist may be replaced. And I think what's going to be really important is that individuals who leverage AI are using higher level critical thinking skills, and that is still going to be important and key. So it goes back to the humanizing. But what we might find is some entry-level jobs that currently exist, or some duties that individuals do now, might go away with AI. So I think what we're looking at is not removing, heavens no, the human element, but I think jobs will change. And so I think it's really important, whether you're a college student, whether you've been working for 20, 30 years, is to constantly reskill and retool yourself. Look at your work life as a continual learning experience. I know I'm in higher ed, so I promote learning, but I think that's what makes work so interesting. And I think it can be exciting to learn some of these new tools in your day-to-day environment. So jobs are going to change, and some jobs may not exist in the same way. But I think as many technology tools over the past have done, is create new opportunities and new jobs. I always say to people, the job I have now didn't exist when I was in college. And so we're thinking now, how do we prepare individuals for jobs that are going to come in maybe another 5 years? So constantly retool and reskill.
Perfect. Excellent advice, and I agree with all of that. So we have just a few minutes left. So what I wanted to do was two things. Closing remarks. So any of the three of our panelists share some final thoughts that you have. And then also, if you all can put your LinkedIn profiles into the chat for our attendees, just to be able to connect with you, that would be phenomenal. And so whoever wants to start can go ahead and start. Just closing thoughts.
Yeah, I'll start. So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to try and be less controversial than I need to be. One, with the change of technology, there will be things that we don't focus on as much, and you can spend your time being upset that we don't focus on those things as much, or you can kind of adapt. So as it became really important to be able to use a computer, we're not practicing cursive in elementary school like we used to. Like, I had to be great at cursive when I was in elementary school. My kids do not. They don't practice it at all. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's terrible. I learned how to do cursive. How come you don't know how to do cursive? And the question becomes, is that the thing that's really important? Or is it the ability to access information, speak for yourself, and all of those things? So I think that's going to happen tremendously in college and in all of those places, because the truth is, for the most part, for most students, college is a place that you survive. It's not a place where you're going to find your intellectual self. There's so much pressure to finish, get the best degree you can get so that you can get a high-paying job. And that's just the truth. That's what's been going on forever. So then if you introduce something that makes it a little bit easier, you will have a large amount of students who are going to use that as a crutch to help them in their process of surviving. So if we are in this process of understanding that this is available, the way we approach it from a educational standpoint has to change. The way you approach, if I want to make sure that you understand these concepts, it has to change if I know that you have access to AI. The same way it would change if I knew you had the access to the internet. The same way, if I'm trying to teach you math, I'm not going to give you simple math problems and tell you to go home because you have a calculator. So that's not my way of figuring out if you know the concept, as opposed to, do you know how to use a calculator? So the way we approach those things will dramatically change. And I think that there will be students who are in classes in universities who understand that and prepare them for that, and understand that this is going to be the change. And either I can fight and say, no, you can't use AI because that is going to make you a less effective student, or saying, let's use AI to help you improve your thought process. Let's use AI to help you improve the way you approach these different situations. And so the same thing will happen with work. The same thing will happen in all of these industries. There will be people who join it immediately and get the benefits of figuring it out and playing around with it and being the people who kind of dictate how this place goes forward. And then there will be a larger group who resist it and try and hold on to something that's not really there anymore, or it's changed dramatically. And so as a result, you kind of put yourself in a position where you're behind the eight ball on something that's changing, right? If the like there are articles. I've done presentations and shown articles of people going back and forth. The internet's not going to be a big thing. The internet's not really a big deal. Don't worry about this stuff. And so you can be that now with AI, or you can understand that this is going to happen, and this is something that we then need to think of. How do we teach? How do we approach work? How do we approach creativity so that we're not over reliant on this thing, but we are using it for the potential that it has? So those are my closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts are, look at this as an opportunity. This is a pretty new and exciting assistant. Again, it is a tool to help make you more productive. I think my advice is to jump in and try some different things, and don't be nervous that you're not going to get it right the first time. I don't think there's any perfect way of jumping into AI other than testing some different items, and a lot of these tools are free initially, so they're free to use and they're easy to find. So my advice is learn how you can best leverage it in your day-to-day job to make you more productive and to make you more resilient for the future.
I'll just quickly say final thoughts that if you're looking to create something that you want to add some sort of value to yourself, to your company, or something like that, then please use AI responsibly and use it as a tool to create that thing that is mostly created by you, so that you can one day claim it as your own, as your property, something that could help you build value, gain investment, stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's my final thoughts. Thanks.
There, we have 3 minutes, and there's one final question, which is an interesting one, and I lost it. Where did it go? Whoops, hold on. No, where? Oh, here we go. Being in higher education, I hear firsthand of students using AI in lieu of creatively thinking for themselves, and that's something that we've definitely talked about today. And he says, I believe this is a big issue moving forward, that students would rather use AI generated content than taking the time to create their own. Do you agree or disagree? Cindy, you probably see this the most.
So I agree that it is a potential problem, which is why at our institution, we have a working group on this. We're working on training materials to help faculty modify their assessments so that students may leverage AI but may not use it in lieu of. And I'll give an example. I have my neighbor who's in the office next to me. It teaches engineering. He has students build robots. So he creates academic assessments that you can't emulate by plugging in some information online. But what this has done, this has changed the way that we do need to teach, and that our teaching needs to adapt to incorporating it, teaching students how to use it ethically, and also creating assessments or project-based learning that can't just be spit out. So I think what you're saying is a potential problem, but it's one that I know that many institutions other than mine are working on in order to change the way we teach to really adapt with this new technology, because you don't want students, being the future engineer that thinks they're going to plug in all the answers and doesn't understand. And so I think it's really important that we assess students differently so that they're using key critical thinking skills and solving problems for the future. Maybe they're leveraging it, but not in lieu of understanding how to critically think. So thank you. I think that was a great point.
Adaptation is key. Sounds like in the workplace and in any level of education. Monk, for what it's worth, I'm very sad that my children don't know how to write in script. But yeah, I mean, at some point we also stopped using, a feathered pen with ink. So change is hard. It just really is.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you everybody so much for joining us today. This has been terrific. I've certainly learned a lot, and we've got more coming. So keep an eye on your inbox for future events. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.